Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Deciphering My Experience. My name is Eric, and I am happy to have back Kevin from Canada. He is an artist and an experiencer in his own right. We had a wonderful conversation last time he was on, and we touched on a lot of topics. But today we're going to hopefully go in more depth to some of these fantastic experiences that Kevin has had. So, welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Oh, thanks, Eric. It's a pleasure to be back.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to have your ear again, since I remember we spoke about so many good things last time, and I was wondering if today we could start one of the most interesting things from your past that I've actually only heard one other person say was that they had shared dreams with their siblings, and I found that really interesting. Could you bring us up to speed on that conversation again?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just over at my sister's even last night, and we're, happened to be discussing because we both feel that we're getting closer and closer to that point where when you look up into the sky and see all these crafts circling around, I mean, because it's always the same sort of thing where, and my sister's like, yeah, it's always like we meet in the middle of the road and we're looking up and first it's just a few basically points of light in the sky that start moving around. And then it turns into formations and sometimes pictures that are actually projected up into the sky and just like full on formation. So, like when I read things like, talking about as the stars come down, in the end times, the biblical kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, I can kind of relate to that because that's the way it is like, is that, yeah, suddenly the sky is so filled with these crafts, they're like stars that just start moving around in formations, forming pictures, forming
So from your perspective, when you're saying like the ships and the stars, is it that they each look singularly like a dot of light, like a pixel, so to say, in the picture? Okay.
Yeah, that's where it'll often start, and so it'll just be all these little star-like, they say pixels, and then form to create, formations or images, or even at times actual like projections. So later on in life, when I started looking up things that coming across things talking about Project Bluebeam, it was like, holy shit, that's just like what I've been dreaming about since I was a little kid. Seeing these images in the sky. So to me, it wasn't so much that I came across things of Project Bluebeam and thought, oh, that's interesting. It was more like, oh, okay, that just gives a whole different dimension to what I'd already been.
It makes me wonder if it was like a premonition of some sort, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the way that the world is going. I know that I have certainly had ideas in my head as the years have passed, and it sure seems like things have just come to fruition. And there's not a lot of people that I've spoken to about certain things, but there's certain people that I've spoken to about a lot of things. And those people, like, kind of almost tease me, like they're like, stop thinking what you think, it's happening.
Yeah. Well, it's so true, and that's why it really prompted me to take a step like this, because so many synchronicities have been happening to me in this last couple of years, especially. There's been all sorts of things throughout my life, but because I've gone through some pretty rough times in this last 12 years. Break up with a relationship, and it set me down a real bad spiral for a while.
I wonder about those things, like when you say like the 12 years, like Tony Rodriguez talks about folks looking at their timetables and putting things on a timeline and starting to look for cycles of things.
Okay.
So it may be that if you pay attention, like you just said 12 years, well, what's the 12 years before that like? What was the 12 years before that like? If you now say, well, such and such happened on this day, can you then move and shift and say, well, such and such happened on this day? And then this, and then you start seeing frequencies of events, and it's know thyself in a way.
No, exactly. That's exactly what I've been feeling. It's recognizing those patterns. Not that I consciously, was thinking, oh, okay, what's going to happen 12 years from now or whatever. But it just has happened that certain chains of events took place, which prompted me down that road. And as I said to a lot of people, that the universe only gives you what you ask for. Sometimes you don't really understand what you're asking the universe to give you.
Yes.
And you don't like the result.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, in retrospect, looking back, yeah, I was getting to a point that's very, very sort of cynical about the world, very, very jaded. You know, I didn't necessarily like where my own life was going, that, oh, I'm kind of in this job that I don't really, you know, my relationship, but, you know, you start entertaining ideas that, you know, what if, or what if I was going down a different path? Well, the universe gave me that opportunity.
That's a beautiful thing.
And it almost broke me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't mind saying that. Yeah, I entertained ideas that I thought I would never entertain.
Interesting.
You start circling that drain,
mm-hmm.
because it's a tough journey. And you know, without getting into detail, I mean, I'm just one of millions of people who've experienced, you know, that sort of a
totally.
breakup. You know, and it's, to me, it's a cathartic experience that will either break you, you know, or make you stronger. You know, and I remember.
I think you're right. I think a lot of people have similar experiences, and just need to communicate that so that most folks don't feel like they're circling the drain by themselves. You know, you can realize that there's a whole bunch of folks in the whirlpool. at least there's that level of solidarity.
Yeah. No, if you feel that, oh, geez, okay, I'm not just experiencing this by myself, and that's sort of what prompts me to yeah, this is kind of the direction I'd want to go in this, you know, at least for part of this discussion, because, you know, it's one thing to sort of philosophically think about these ideas, and you know, I always thought that, you know, I was pretty in tune and looking up all sorts of different cultures, different philosophies, different religions, and you know, I understood a lot of things on an intellectual level. But it's not until you get a real kick in the nuts, and you know, you get the wind knocked out of your sail.
I almost feel like, in a way of looking at it in the reverse, Kevin, that it's not that you were in tune, you weren't tunable. I feel like almost everybody else gets locked into a frequency, and then they get transmitted to. And then there's folks like you that don't get locked into that, and you can still look at all the frequencies. You know, it's like other people get dialed in. They get tuned into a single, like, radio channel, whereas you still have control of the dial, and you can move frequencies and things like that.
No, that's exactly what, you know, sort of how my life has you know, unfolded. Because, you know, when you're in high school and you're young, idealistic, and you know, full of all sorts of, you know, ideas. Yeah, there's lots of friends that I could bounce ideas off with and have great conversations. But over time, it became fewer and fewer that seemed to be even remotely, you know, willing to engage in these kind of discussions.
Yeah, it's like they get dialed in.
Yeah, oh, totally. It's all about their corporate world. It's all about, you know, the little box that they're living in now. And, you know, for me, it was always, for the most part, I would talk about UFOs. I would talk about different ancient civilizations, you know, stuff like that. And it was always like, oh, you know, good boy, yeah, we'll amuse Kevin, and, you know. But in these last 4 or 5 years, when I became more and more political, I guess, you know, not by choice, but just as your eyes open up, and, you know, like I say, through this cathartic experience that I've gone through, you know, you shift your focus from thinking, you know, poor me, woe is me, why did this all fall apart, you know, and at some point I basically opened up my heart, and, you know, not to sound too religious or grandiose or anything, but yeah, you ask for help, you know, with the higher source. You say, you know, open my heart, so take away some of this pain.
Yeah, sometimes you got to make a call.
Yeah. And you know, when you do that, it's not like you know, this big guy didn't just wiggle his nose and say, okay, everything's groovy for you now.
Yeah, because people, like, there are other people like this, and I've spoken to them, and it's, you know, people don't understand. Like, you're having to deal with, like, literally, like, what you had is what you thought were dreams as a child, but now you're starting to see things in the real world around you that are literally coming to fruition. So the challenge is, I mean, mind-numbing to maintain sanity, because you're like, what? How am I so in the know?
Yeah,
you know? And then what do you do with that info? And then you start trying to talk to people, and it falls on deaf ears, but the world is changing around them to the beat of your drum, and they don't hear the tune.
Yeah. No, it's very true.
Look where we are today. You know, I see your premonitions as a child. You know, what are the odds that you were so in tune with the world that
Yeah,
you had the privilege of having such an imagination to imagine the way things were? You just got that lucky. You know,
yeah,
here we are now staring down the barrel of most nations of the world possessing these technologies. Like they have them. What they can do with a drone swarm, to make
yeah.
pictures in the sky now is remarkable.
Yeah, it's like this isn't science fiction, but a lot
Yeah.
of people still think this is all science fiction.
Right.
It's like
Correct.
no. This is,
Right. Just because they
there's
made
so much
movies out of it in the past doesn't mean they don't intend on doing it in the future, which is right now from the
yeah,
past, which was the movie that was made decades. Like that's all they did is, you know, we're learning now that the vast majority of projects pretty much had like a Hollywood cinema smokescreen counterpart. So
yeah.
it's like if they'd have a project going on, and in real time they're like, well, just make a movie about it. That'll be our cover
Mm-hmm.
story. So that if in 2 years anybody ever says like, hey, did you guys? We're like, no, you knuckleheads, you just saw the movie.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
the way I tend to look at it is that this is all part of, there's a cosmic play being
Mm-hmm.
played out,
Mm-hmm.
and certain elements they have to tell us exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree that there's some value to that. There's something in the
Yeah,
harmony of the universe that
yeah,
there's negative ramifications for those that deceive.
yeah, and so, that's that gray zone, that's that
Right.
loophole, cosmic loophole I refer to it
Yes.
as. That if you tell them exactly what you plan on doing,
Mm-hmm.
the onus is on us
Yep.
to go, holy shit, these guys are planning to do this and this and this to us.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can sit back and say, that was a cool movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it unfolds, you go, oh, yeah, you remember that? It's like that movie.
I've had someone reach out to me that's given me quite a bit of good intel, but doesn't want to come forward. And
Yeah.
one of the things that this person has suggested to me, and imparted, I should say, because they were very adamant about their position on it, and they were saying that the Stargate movie and TV series was straight up CIA manufactured alongside the program in real time as their cover story.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's a bold statement. I get it, but looking at where we are now, it's becoming less and less bold.
Well, yeah, I've got sort of an interesting personal little tangent on that myself.
Go for it.
Well, without naming names,
Mhm.
I've got who was a good friend, and I still like to consider him a good friend. But he featured in a number of roles in that program.
Nice.
And over the years, he's dropped little tantalizing things, without coming right forward with things.
There you go.
But he's one of the people that I've had, a falling out with about 4 years ago because of my views,
Mhm.
especially when I started talking about the human trafficking, the pedophilia,
That usually gets people running for the hills. They don't want to hear that part of the story.
And I thought him and his, without going into details, I thought they would be very, open to it, or wanting to, at least get an idea of what's going on, and not shut me down the way they did. But to not go too much off on a tangent. Yeah, he had, he played a number of roles in it, not the giant roles or anything, but substantial.
When you get into proximity of things, certain information just seeps off of it sometimes.
Yeah, but sort of the kicker, and just within this last couple of weeks, because pretty much the last thing he did, the last time I saw him about, I don't know, I think about 3 years ago, I went over there for a very short visit. And he gave me H.G. Wells' book, The Time Traveler.
Nice.
And, I kind of thought at the time, because I was starting to put together, it's like, okay, what do you really know about the Stargate? Because I had come across things that you were talking about, that there was a little more to that than what meets the eye.
Yes. And
so now I'm about halfway through this little book. I don't know if you've ever read it.
I have not.
No, it's quite interesting.
Okay.
It's
Oh, wait a
There's
minute.
some.
You're talking about the original.
Yep, yep. This is all
Mm.
of H.G. Wells' Time Traveler.
I
Just a second.
may have read it. That would have been a long time ago. I know as I possessed it. I know I saw the original movie. There was an old film on it with like a very rudimentary. Wait, no, you're talking. You're not talking. You're saying Time Traveler. Yeah, The Time Machine. Okay, The Time Machine.
Oh, sorry, The Time Machine. Yeah.
The Time Machine. I think I did read that one because I do believe I saw. I wasn't sure if it was a different iteration, like in the series, because you said The Time Traveler at first, and I was thinking The Time Traveler. I don't think so, but The Time Machine. I believe I read that, and then I definitely know that I saw there was an old movie for it, and I didn't see the new one. They just made a new rendition of it.
Right. No, I haven't seen that at all.
I remember liking the old one.
So I'm really quite unfamiliar with the book, or any of it, and so I'm just not even quite halfway through it. And
this is like, the one where you have the people in the future, and there's the ones that live above ground and below ground.
That's about where I am right now. That he just met up with these strange little people in this weird sort of utopian type of world.
There you go.
It seems, but just right off the get-go, I mean, there's some interesting information in there that for the time when he would have written this, it's like, okay, this guy, he knew some sort of things that the physicists are only now beginning to, ponder. And so it's like, okay, this is interesting. So, these are the things that sort of have come about in my life in these last number of years. Yeah, that really make me go, what the heck's really going on? It
makes you wonder what some of these authors were privy to.
Yeah.
There's definitely some different info streams on the planet way back when, and not everybody was privy to every info stream. Data was more valuable, and access to it was more guarded. But you could, like, by streak of luck sometimes just find yourself in front of something amazing back then.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the way I envision that a lot of these guys, like, George Orwell or H.G. Wells, is like, I can see them being approached by certain people, like, okay, these guys were talented writers. And it's like, hey, we have a project for you. We want you to put this certain amount of information. You've got an artistic license to approach it however you like, but we need certain information presented. And so in my mind, that's how I sort of see a lot of these guys were able to give out information that now we look back and go, wow, they were visionaries.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And they might have been, but they might have had, I do believe they probably more than likely had help. That certain elements were saying, no, we as I was saying, they have to tell us what their plans are, what they really want to do. And if we read it in a book and we go, oh, well, that's just science fiction, that's up to us to make that determination.
Yes, because they put the information out.
Yeah, they've upheld their end of the bargain. It's that cosmic loophole that allows them to further their agenda. Because it's like, well, we're not really completely lying to them. We're just, we're having a little fun with the truth.
Right. In one way, what's the difference? Like, let's say you're a big time, robber baron on the planet, and you can invest in how the news covers you and stuff like that. So what's the difference, or I should say how the world sees you? So what's the difference if you spend money on a news channel to set up cameras and present it this way, or you spend money to set up cameras and make a movie production that presents it a different way? In the grand scheme of reality and the cosmos and the physics of how things function and the energies and the matter of things, you're in balance.
Yeah. And that is what it's about. I'm looking at this whole thing as more of it's an electrical equation. It's all about balancing charge.
Yep.
And everything that I've been doing is kind of leading me to that, so ideas of ultimate good or ultimate bad. Well, in the ultimate scheme of things, you need this electrical charge balance. If everything was positive, everything was one, well, there wouldn't be creation. we wouldn't have this universe.
I felt like from everything that we were saying last time in the video, which was a great video, by the way, folks, go check out the archives and go check out the previous video that I did with Kevin, and subscribe while you're there as well, please.
That's
But
right, yeah.
the image that kept popping in my head for the way that you were wording things was the infinity symbol.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how things just keep coming back on itself, like almost like an infinity, like an Ouroboros infinity symbol. So like a snake eating its tail, but in the shape of the infinity symbol. And that to me seems to be the way your mind looks at a lot of things, that the full circle, that there's pros and cons and you can't separate, but that's the true harmony is being in connection with everything.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I was looking at this sort of stuff, you know, back in junior high school, and you know, reading about the Taoism, you know, the I Ching, and you know, the Book of Changes, and you realize that, you know, the Taoist view is that, you know, as a whole, nothing changes, everything exists. You know, it's the same sort of ideas that our modern day theoretical physicists are saying, that every reality exists at one time. We just happen to be perceiving one little sliver of it. Yeah. And so here's the Taoists. We're discussing the same concept, you know, hundreds of years ago, and putting it in a way that it's, you know, like the I Ching is this thing of 64 hexagrams. So these are the 64 possible conditions of mankind, of you know, incarnation, all the different conditions that we can experience. As a whole, they all exist all the time, but it's only our own perception. So, so is there evil? Is there good? It's just like, well, there's just different points within this big picture. And, you know, you get to a certain point, it's like, yeah, okay, I've had it with that sort of side. I've learned those lessons. You know, I don't hate this. I don't, you know, begrudge anyone. But where I am on my path is like, no thanks. I prefer not. You know?
It was interesting being at the South Pole and listening to the physicists talk about looking for, you know, God particles and things like that. And it does sound similar to like monks talking about finding inner spirituality. It's interesting how the two different compartments, when they're not around each other, don't realize that they're kind of pretty much saying the same thing.
Exactly. That's always fascinating to me, is that it's coming
I just had a question for you off the top of my head. It triggered the Taoism that you follow. Is that where Qigong comes from? Do you know?
I think that's,
Okay, I just wasn't sure.
I can't say for sure, no. But yeah, I think that's all part of the understanding of the flow.
Okay.
That the universe is just about this, you know, and if you flow with the universe, things can go good. If you start bucking it, you know, and I think, Qigong is all about channeling that
okay.
Qi, that energy. You know?
I had spoken with someone else recently that was very much recommending the Qigong practice for helping balance and harmonize oneself.
Yeah, I can't speak to the particulars of it. I haven't looked into that deeply, but you know, I just know from looking at, you know, the I Ching, is that okay? They're talking about concepts that now our modern day physicists are grappling this idea of being and not being, of this and that. It exists in this state, but it also exists in this state at the same time. These paradoxes that they're grappling with. They're like, it is this, it is that, it is neither.
It wasn't that long ago that Western medicine figured out that you could take the central nervous system and lay it over the Chinese pressure point chart and see that there was, you know, function.
Yeah, the meridian line, like, oh, geez, okay, that does correspond to our endocrine system, and that, that's how energy flows. You know,
they've known it for thousands of years.
Now, we're approaching it in a much more mechanistic viewpoint, and they were seeing the subtler energy show up. But no, I mean, that's been part of my journey, is you know, things that I've looked at when I was much younger, and I could understand on a certain intellectual level. A lot of things that I've gone through in these last number of years, you know, it's been more of an experiential experience, rather than understanding it on that sort of, okay, this, you know, understand it on an intellectual, philosophical level. It's not until you really, you know, that's what I was going to say, is that until when I opened my heart, and suddenly, you know, I wasn't just looking for my perspective of things. It was like, how did all the things I've said to people throughout my life, whether it was in elementary and teasing, a girl that I had a crush on or something, but I come from a big family. We always teased each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and so it didn't.
And you were the youngest, so you didn't really have a choice in the matter.
No, I got, in ways probably very spoiled, but in other ways, yeah, I got all the teasing,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And yeah, some of that probably didn't play out that good in the real world because a lot of people weren't used to that level of teasing. That, for me, it was just kind of natural.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we did, and you think everyone does that.
Yep.
And so, but not until I started really looking at, going away from, oh, woe is me, and look how this has impacted me. It's like, no, you have to look how what you've done has impacted everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a part of my journey, is to really look at all sorts of things and having that clarity. I mean, sometimes I'm right back to that moment and experiencing that moment, and I feel it from their point of view.
Any chance you're familiar with the old Jimmy Stewart movie, It's a Wonderful Life?
Okay, sure, yeah.
There you go. You have to have like that perspective.
Yeah.
And
that's really what I've gone through in these last number of years. And so it's shifted from, just thinking from an egocentric point to going like, no, I'm actually in their shoes. And, going through those moments, I'm in those shoes, and I feel how I've impacted people.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's a very sobering experience.
That's definitely helpful for the going around the whirlpool at that point to be able to get to those thoughts. Absolutely. Yep. That's a lifeline. And I'm glad that you had that, because I think it's good that people can share these things, their challenging thoughts. So now this is like someone like you that I look at, we need contemporarily, because who else can overcome the challenges of making these connections?
Yeah.
It's not an easy leap to make. Going back to the dreams, I mean, to even consider that I could be potentially thinking these things, and now I have to say something because look what's going on. I totally get that. I'm in the same boat with you on that one, because a lot of stuff doesn't make sense until now. Here it is years later, and there's things that I thought about as a kid that even today, like all of a sudden something might happen, and I will be brought back to a previous time where I had a consideration, but I didn't have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, in a way, it's almost a way of time travel, at least observationally, prospectively, whatever you want to call it. Science teaches us, like we were just saying before, that all possibility exists always, and then technically it's also all energy. And we also see through other certain experiments that energy isn't really truly limited by time.
No.
So it just opens up so many doors of possibility, because, the average person will say, well, what does that mean? And you have to say, well, technically it means time travel's like completely possible. Well, that's ridiculous. Well, hold on, let's go talk to a physicist. And if you have the same conversation with a physicist, they'll be honest. They'll say, well, technically, according to the math, it means time travel's possible. It's just, they don't like the answer. They'll say, but you can't prove it. They'll say, you can't prove time travel is possible. And at which point I would acquiesce and agree with said physicist's intelligence.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, if a person needs that, black and white proof in front of them, well, you know what? You're probably never going to get it. And you can either lead the rest of your life going, no, I'm never going to look down anything, never outside of the box. And that's okay. That person's not at that. The way I look at it now is that person's not at that stage. Right. It's not that it's a worse stage or a better stage. It's like, it's all part of this one path. And, it's just like, just this last while, I've had more of these sort of little epiphanies from when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
And one thing that popped in my mind just fairly recently is, I was laying on my stomach with my brother playing Army with our Army guys stretched out on the living room hardwood floor. And here's young Kevin thinking about what war is all about. And suddenly this lucid thought, because, time travel, I do believe, is a very, very common thing, especially when you're young. that you are able to project forward in time and see things that make no sense at the time. So when I was sitting, you know, playing army guys with my little green soldiers and stuff, like I could see it as clear as day, you know, when I'm thinking about this. And I'm thinking, well, what is war? Like, what is war about? Because I'm thinking, you know, guns and fighting and battle. But then I think what I was being downloaded was that, no, I was looking forward to what's happening right now, where this doesn't seem like war. It's a psychological war that we're engaged in right now. And so for me to wrap my head around that as a little kid, it made no sense to me at all. But suddenly all this stuff starts flowing back in, and it's like, oh, that's why it made no sense to me. Because, yeah, this makes no fucking sense.
Kevin, is there any chance that you're familiar with the work of Edgar Cayce?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, excellent. So I feel like let's hypothesize for a moment. What if we all had Edgar Cayce-like abilities at birth, right?
Oh, I think we did. I think we did. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Makes this hypothesis easy. So let's say we're born with Edgar Cayce-like skills from birth, but we've had a society that's forgotten, you know, fall of man type stuff, or commandeered our intelligence to no longer let this out, you know, in the general populace. But certain kids, like others, have higher and lower levels. So, but no one's being supported in these peculiar thoughts, these Cayce-like Akashic record accesses of a 4-year-old, you know, just because you have an inquiry and you get access to the Akashic records doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to like get to the right book that you want or have the right story, so to say. You're getting access, but it's a childlike perspective. So I bet you it's probably very challenging for us as children doing these things when the adults are denying that it's going on, right?
Well, but they don't have the frame of reference to be able to, I think I was lucky because coming from a big family, you know, we're a pretty zany bunch, and we bounce the stuff off each other as kids all the time, and so we weren't being conditioned to just sort of no, now you can't think about that stuff anymore. And,
I think that's another thing science has shown us too, as far as the benefit of large families and the position of the youngest sibling. I think it would show that because you have so many different avenues of input of information, the youngest is the hardest one to corral.
Yeah.
Like literally, because you have all the help from all the other siblings. You know, they've run so much interference between you and your parents through all of the years. I mean, that's just how big families work. It's there's pros and cons to everything. You know, but that's on the pros list. Is like pretty much the parents are worn thin by it's your turn.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You know, so by the time I'm a teenager, it was pretty much hands off. Like, okay, at 14, I'm gonna go ride my bike from Jasper to Banff and Calgary and home again. Yeah. You know, with a group of friends at 14 years old.
Yeah, much less boundaries than the older sibling.
Oh, boy, yeah. And all sorts of things where, time it got to me, a lot of things that were a concern, an issue with my older brothers. It was like, oh, you're growing some weeds in the garden now? Mom is plucking out the weeds in between the weeds.
Nice.
You know, it's like, not that I'm anyway advocating that sort of thing, but hey.
It's better than Western pharmaceutical pills and stuff.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's way you got to approach it too. That all things are here for our benefit. If any one thing becomes too much for crutch, well, then it's a detriment to your growth. And so I'm still a bit of a pothead. I don't hide things.
I think there's probably a trillion things in Mother Nature that we're not using to the best of its benefit.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and it's all about are you using it or are you misusing it?
Yes. And lest anybody in the population learns about homeopathic medicine and how it's awesome. You know, they think of it as like woo-woo old school science, but they fail to realize it's actually more effective than Western medicine.
Yeah, well, I got my first introduction into homeopathic medicine when I was traveling, as a 19-year-old in New Zealand, cycling around through New Zealand.
There you go.
And there was woofers, this workers on organic farms organization.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my buddy, we stopped at one of these places where just this eccentric old guy had, a neat little organic farm going on, but he was all about homeopathy.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I knew nothing about it. And, I was like, oh, yeah, you take this and you add a drop of that, and then you dilute it with water, and then you take a drop of that, and you dilute it with more and more and more. And at first you think, well, how the hell could that actually do it?
Mm-hmm.
But the more you understand it, it's the essence of things.
And people just don't want to know that, like, homeopathic medicine basically just means you taking things from Mother Nature and mixing them to cure yourself, versus Western medicine and pharmaceuticals, which is just them taking the stuff, calling it something else, packaging it, and selling it to you.
Well,
with a lot of other stuff, that doesn't really work well because it's just profitable, and they're not really in the business of curing you.
Yeah, it's like taking a 2x4. You've got a headache, so we're going to start whacking you with a 2x4 to make you better. Yeah, and that's what Western medicine to me is about. Where
absolutely.
Homeopathy is like, no, sometimes you only need the slightest essence of something to help your body get back into balance.
Mm-hmm.
It's this dance in you that is going on.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that you can actually you could simply be eating food that doesn't work for you, that's causing the headache, and if you were to remove that from your diet, you wouldn't need the aspirin.
Yeah.
Like, what a novel concept.
Oh, I know. And again, experientially, like I've been having some real issues with my hip for quite some time. Like 5 years ago, I thought, I need it. Well, I do. I need a hip replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Chiropractors saying, oh yeah, no, you should get onto the list right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, about 5 years later, after getting some relief for him, what he was doing to me, some manipulations, and then suddenly, wow, I feel not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I started taking what he was doing and modifying it to what I could do to myself. And, I'm worlds better than I was, even a couple of years ago, where I thought, oh man, no, I got to get, and I just kind of I got pissed off at a point, several years ago, again, feeling sort of down, at a point where it's like, oh man, this is, why this? And, my dad had already passed away, but then I heard as clear as a bell, because I was all hunched over and, just feeling more and more like a total old man. And I just heard him clear as day, stand up straight. And, so Dad, he had a pretty good temper on him,
mm-hmm.
but in the right ways, it can be a very helpful, useful thing. Because I just got pissed off at myself, and I said, okay, I've looked at my hip and I could see that it was out of joint. And being a sculptor, when I'm doing a sculpture, I'm always feeling, I want to have both sides the same side, so it's always a very tactile thing. So partly out of desperation, just partly out of anger, I just, okay, I'm either going to wind up in the hospital tonight or I'm going to, start straightening myself out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've been doing for the last several years is really my own sort of chiropractor, massage therapy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, I from where I was a couple of years ago, if I look in the mirror, it's like, wow,
mm-hmm.
I'm almost pretty much straight. I can stand up straight, whereas there was no way I could. I was so out of alignment everywhere. And, you take that, the old adage of, physician, heal yourself. You take that to heart. And, it was partly out of desperation, partly out of just, okay, this is it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, slowly over time between that and visualization, before I go to bed, I try to visualize myself as, that perfect 5D matrix of my original template for my body. But I do that with physical manipulations too, first off, and help get myself in alignment. Mm-hmm. And so my whole process has been not only getting sort of my heart and mind aligned, it's getting my whole physical body aligned too. Mm-hmm. And this whole process has been, it's an eye opener. As I say, this isn't, it's moved from intellectual, philosophical to experiential. it's like, no, I'm seeing the actual physical results of saying, no, I can take control of my own body.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, like I went back to this chiropractor, I didn't see him for a couple of years, and, just feeling, a bit bad. I thought, oh, I'll go get a little realignment with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was amazed at the progress. He's like, wow, this is kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I could see it in his face because he's looking over the chart and looking over me after. And he's like, wow, this is, whatever you're doing, keep on doing it.
I feel like there's some semblance of like what I would use, like there's a trinity to mind, body, and spirit. And if your body is failing you, that you can function through mind and spirit to fix the body. If you know what you're doing. I'm just saying, like, it can be done. These are, probably old techniques that have been long, forgotten or distanced from the population, but it's part of the possibilities that exist, is that we can function that trinity. And then if your spirit is out, you can use the mind and body to work to correct it. That you can always use the remaining two to fix the other one.
Yeah, and I'm incorporating all three things at this time where I do, and my job can be pretty demanding on my body at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought for sure 2-3 years ago that I was done. There's no way I could keep on going.
Mm-hmm.
And until I started doing these things, and suddenly I said, wow, I'm able to get up and down. And I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but compared to where I was, even
a couple of cracking sounds here and there, I get those too.
No, I definitely get that.
Yeah.
And I feel the hip getting back into socket. I feel the tendons riding back over my hip bone as I'm doing all these various exercises. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing that anyone taught me. It was just like, okay, that's where the pain is. As I bend down, as I do a deep knee bend. Mm-hmm. And so I just put pressure with my thumbs on that hip bone. I got my other, hand on my other hip, just as, like I was saying, as I'm doing a sculpture. Mm-hmm. Says, okay, that's the good side. I want this other side to match it now. Mm-hmm. So if I feel that there's something drastically out on that side, I press it back into place. Mm-hmm. And so quite literally, I've been, my own chiropractor.
Nice.
And, if I could regenerate the cartilage that's worn down, because when it's out, it's bone on bone, and it's horrible. But
try visualizing the growth of your cartilage.
Excellent.
I'm serious. There's other. That's not my idea. I'm just totally stealing that. I'm trying to remember where I got this from. This was I can picture the gentleman, but I can't think of his name now. Oh, dang it. I want to give him credit. I'll try to think of it later on. There's a guy that's been doing wonders in healing folks. Joe Dispenza. That's who it is. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah. Okay.
Is basically he's I have not looked into what he's up to recently in depth, but at surface value, it seems like he is making miracles happen now in healing people. And a lot of it has to do with visualization, and he works this technique, and he is getting massive function. You can't thumb your nose at what Joe Dispenza is accomplishing lately.
No, well, I'll have to look at this. I'm familiar with him, but I'm not familiar with him actually doing stuff like that.
Oh, yes, he has grown in the years. I started watching him years ago when he first showed up on this amazing video called "What the Bleep Do We Know?", where they undermined basically most of physics as presented at the time, just to leave everybody like with the question, "What the bleep do we know?" But Joe Dispenza was on this program, but this was decades ago. He has grown a lot. I mean, it's almost like he's a Jedi or something. I don't know how to put it. He has figured some stuff out, and people need to pay attention.
Well, I think you touched on something. We're all entering into our own inner Jedi time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Those who are ready to take the next step. Mm-hmm. I envision an amazing, miraculous type of world in unfold. Mm-hmm. But we got to work through some ugly shit first.
Absolutely, got to earn it.
Yeah, that's what this process is about. It's not an easy ride. Mm-hmm. And I've already gone through my cathartic period. That's why I do what I've gone through this last 12 years. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I didn't go through that, I'd be a miserable, so-and-so that was just very, very pessimistic and jaded about the world. Mm-hmm. I needed a real good shakeup to take me out of my slumber.
In a way, and I know this is a peculiar analogy, I feel like we're on a prison planet in many ways. So I picture that prison planet almost like a slave barge going through space.
Pretty much.
It's my belief that the better outcome is that you break off your shackles and fight for your freedom than it is to wait for some rescue ship.
Yep.
I think there's those two circumstances being distinctly different. If you could have one or the other, I would say the breaking off of your shackles will lead you to a better life.
Oh, absolutely. Like touching on sort of, what prompted me to do this, that image it was like, there was a central figure, the orange man, Mr. Trump, who I believe he has stepped us out of the picture for a very particular reason at this moment. Because when you listen to him, it was never about him being the guy on the knight in shining armor freeing us all. He has always said, this is about us, we the people, getting control again, taking over your sovereignty again. So as much as I and many others would have loved for him to come to the rescue, that's not what this moment in time is about.
I remember him saying something often to the tune of, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just blocking them.
I'm just in the way.
Yeah.
And, it's very, very true. So as much as many people, would have loved to sit back and go, okay, please do the hard work for us. That wasn't his job. His job was to light the fire under all of us.
None of the people that hated him when he became president hated him before he was president. They all went to his parties. They all had a blast. They all adored him until he started going against the grain. That much I know.
Yeah. Well, personally, myself, I never cared two beans about the guy.
Me either.
He's a typical blowhard billionaire, only cares about his own pocket.
I grew up on Long Island, and I'm very familiar with everything the Donald. I mean, seriously. He was in the news everywhere where I grew up. I couldn't believe when he became president, because in my mind's eye, I was very aware of the Clinton machine and the horror show that it was. And when Donald Trump was announced as I had no belief whatsoever he was going to win. I thought it was a setup, like a shill, it's a joke. He's just running so Hillary can win. He's not really she owns Donald Trump. That's how I looked at it. It was like he's just running so that she gives him money to fill in the seat, so that in the end he loses and he doesn't care and he gets all the free advertising in the world because he's a businessman. That's all I expected out of the equation. And then when it turned out that he was elected, my first thought was like, oh my God, the Clintons are moving up a notch now. They now own Donald Trump. This was my thought. They own Donald Trump. They're not even going to bother. They don't even have to be in the White House anymore to run it, apparently.
Yeah, they got an patent to do their dirty work.
Yep, we got this Trump guy. But now, in hindsight, I mean, I don't know that I was wrong.
Well,
where are we? Technically, I mean, one could say he just did everything they wanted him to.
Oh, I can appreciate that viewpoint.
I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. It's just it's a consideration that I have, is that I still don't know until we the people are free. This is Schrodinger's cat, folks. This is Schrodinger's country at this point.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Are we free or are we slaves? The box is still closed.
Yeah.
And we're in the box.
If I didn't see certain things happening, unfolding, that some of these, call them the deep state actors like Fauci and Gates, even Warren Buffett, he's just stepped down from CEO of Microsoft the other day.
Okay.
If we wasn't seeing these sort of things unfolding, like the emails of Fauci coming out and starting to expose his role in AIDS research for the last 30, 40 years, and people like Dr. Mikovich coming out and saying her part in it, it's like, okay, these guys are being outed for what they are. I don't think we'd be seeing that if the deep state was really in control.
I hear what you're saying, but I follow what you're saying, but is that not also par for the course? We seem to always get this low-level breadcrumbs of, look, next week will be better because we got our breadcrumbs this week, but next week we get more breadcrumbs. Nothing's really better yet. No one's arrested. There's still masks on people. Countries in lockdown. I mean, Canada's not in a really good spot right now because of all these lies.
Oh, we're under Chinese rule in Canada right now.
Yeah.
We are under CCP occupation.
So at this stage of the game, like for me, Harmony is not us discussing Fauci's emails are out. Harmony is he's in handcuffs on trial.
Yeah.
But how far are we from that? Because that's ultimately what needs to happen.
Oh, sure.
But it doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen.
Well, yeah.
Because there's really no massive public outrage over these emails. It's kind of almost brushed under the rug already. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I knew Fauci was lying all along as they're taking their masks off. Oh yeah, I totally knew it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from the way I look at it, this is a necessary part of the awakening process. So many people have been fast asleep that unless it's rolled out in a certain way, that people are able to start to digest this information. I mean, maybe that's the optimism in me.
I think it just has to be. It has to be literally slammed out there. I think the rolling out is the deep state controlling everything.
Well,
it's controlling because that's the whole idea of, well, the people can't handle it, so we have to control them by disseminating. No, that's totally inappropriate. Put all of the truth on the table. The people will adapt and adjust. They'll figure it all out. Doling is controlling.
Yeah. Oh no, I appreciate that viewpoint, and I think at a certain point, at least I sort of hope that at a certain point, when at least the consciousness of mankind, the general public, is brought to a point where at least they start to question. Because as you say, a lot of people are now saying, "Oh yeah, I always kind of suspected that Fauci." People will always play that game that, "Oh no, he's the savior. He's like a god." And then I always kind of thought that maybe he was, full of it.
Totally.
But we need the general public to get to that point where they actually at least allow that glimmer of, that little chink in their armor. Because as we talked about, we all have this box that we sort of live in. And a lot of people just don't want to even take a peek outside of that box.
I get
They'll defend it to the very bitter end.
Right.
So what you do first is for people to at least go, what's outside of that box?
I feel like we need to start kicking walls down and letting people know that there's more that has to be done than timidly hiding in their cubicles being told what to do. I mean, that's I get that all this stuff exists, but the existence of it is what allows the control to occur. Because because we can't just go to these people in these boxes and just simply go, hey, did you hear that Fauci had some bad emails? Isn't that terrible? And spoon feeding it. We can't do that anymore. We're losing this battle because of that tactic. Is my suggestion is that we really need to start hammering information in people's directions because there's such a big truth. I mean, we're sitting here like literally right now. We're discussing Fauci's shenanigans with masks as a control mechanism in a world where you and I know that time travel, directed energies, and UFOs exist. Is that not a great play on society to control where our minds are at?
Oh yeah, no, it's a ritualistic shaming practice to get everyone subservient, to comply, to bend their knees. And the way I'm looking at it right now is that all the information is out there. We all have a choice to make at this particular moment.
Yep.
We can stay in that 3D box, or we can start keeping outside of it.
Yep.
And those that are brave enough to tackle the real issues, I do believe there will be an amazing world unfold. But I've often said this last little while.
I believe that I believe there will be too, but I believe it requires the people to get off of their butts and go into massive action.
Yeah.
Almost in a rage, so to say, that this is natural. in a rage to the position they've been put in.
Well, it's got to be a controlled. Yeah, I look at it as a controlled demolition.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, if it goes completely willy-nilly,
Mm-hmm.
we can have buildings collapsing every which way.
Mm-hmm.
This has to be done in a particular strategic way so that it implodes on itself with the least amount of collateral damage. And that's, you know, that's the way I look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Why it's having to play out in a certain way. I'd love to see,
I think it's a massive. I think we're in a massive Wizard of Oz situation. I think it's nowhere near that complex. We can simply pull the curtain back and take control. It would be like that the figurative slave barge again, right? Imagine we're all underneath, like what was that movie? Ben-Hur, the old movie, you know, the rowing boats where everybody's all chained in, you know. It would be like being on one of those ships where you have thousands of rowing slaves underneath in the shackles, and all of a sudden they realize there's only one dude up top that they're rowing this boat for.
Yeah.
You know? No, what would they do in the middle of the ocean if they learned that there was just this one dude up there?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's where we are right now, like in our society, is that we all have, like, we've been so shackled into where we're at. Yeah. And we have this false perception of what a rebellion would look like.
Well, no, exactly.
Everyone's like, "Oh, we can't do that. It would be a bloody, horrible mess." No, it wouldn't. We would just have to go knock on the rich people's doors and say, "You're done. We're not listening to you anymore." There's nothing bloody required. No, it would be the most polite revolt ever.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where we're going. But but because they've been waging the psychological war against us through all sorts of psychological means of mind control, that's why it's being countered.
I believe we're going in that direction, but how do we expedite for this theoretical situation? How do we incentivize the slaves into rebellion?
Well, what we're doing right now.
Okay, 10-4.
That's why I'm on here again.
Okay.
That's like, you know, hey, we all got to do our little part.
Wake up, folks.
Yeah, if you know, like, yeah, I borrow some my fellow workers to tears with them through by ranting. But hey, even if I say things that they might go, "Oh man, he's fucking out of his rocker," that's okay. Yep. Because I know I've planted seeds that somewhere down the road, and it's already happened. Like, wow, we talked about several years ago. It's all happening now.
Yes.
And so this has been my own, at least, personal little mission, is to, like, okay, I don't mind being the front guy who sticks his neck out and you know, like, looked at as a nut job.
Yep.
Because I know what that stake is so bigger than what most people can wrap their heads around.
For many years now on Facebook, I would just get a hair up my ass and I would just simply post, like, in all caps, like, "Always remember, you are not free."
Yeah.
And I would just put that up there, and the responses that I would get, people, like, they would be so mad. "How dare you say watch.
No.
Watch." You're getting less free by the second. The more you type, you're getting less and less free. Trust me.
Yeah.
Unless you're actively doing something about it, is the world that we're in right now. You know, unless you're actively doing something to promote A, your freedom, and B, the freedom of your neighbors. If we as a group are not doing that today, we're going to reap the other end of the spectrum, is that there are forces that are actively working against our freedoms.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There is a momentum to this, and we're on the losing end of it right now. I do agree that we can get this back. I do feel that we've seen historically, like, even, you know, the old adage, you know, that good prevails over evil every time. And I agree with that. But there's long timetables in between where bad is kicking the snots out of good because good is just sitting on its apathetic butt.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, I tend to think that, I mean, there was, you know, the last few months, you start really questioning, like, oh my God, are we going to have this worst case scenario? Are we going to go down this complete totalitarian road? And, you know, if I wasn't seeing certain things, like, okay, fair enough. It can be part of a planned dissemination of information to give people that, oh, we got a fighting chance, you know. I mean, that might be true. But I also believe that, you know what, I think this has to be done this way so that we aren't relying on a knight in shining armor to save us. We got to pull up our own socks, get up our own asses, and do whatever we can.
Break those shackles. That's the way I see it. I agree. It's break the shackles time.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of people are so content with being shackled.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want. And I'm at a point right now with like, okay, I understand that. And those people that are still happy to be shackled, that is the reality that they will more than likely experience for the next who knows how many lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of us who are ready to get off this carousel, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, it's the Ouroboros chasing our tail, eating our tail.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of us who are saying, you know what? No, I'm tired of it. Been there, done it.
Yep.
I'm ready to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, it's like an electrical equation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you get caught up in fear and hatred and stuff, you're still in that loop.
Mm-hmm.
You're not breaking out.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you got to say, you know what? I understand why people are locked in that fear mode, that state of hatred and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of their personal journey at this moment. If I get all worked up and bent out of shape trying to convince someone otherwise, all that's doing is keeping me within that loop as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been part of my, you know, in this last few months, just the retrospection that, you know what, I can't save the world,
Mm-hmm.
but I can save myself.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully people who have some eyes to see and ears to hear will maybe take a few things that I say and go, I'm going to look into that myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I'm more interested in. Is I don't want people just to say, oh, yeah, I believe you, Kevin. Like,
No.
do your research.
Yep.
You know, look into this stuff because it's going to mean nothing for you. It's like if Trump came along and exposed the deep state, exposed the voter fraud, everything just like that, well, what would people learn?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go right back to the same thing because it didn't really affect the majority of people.
Mm-hmm. I do believe there was a major education program through the Trump presidency to get people better informed. I do see that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of factions playing games here, and I did see there was definitely a faction that was trying to educate the American people as to the shenanigans going on behind closed doors for decades.
And that's really why I view him now is that, yes, his role was to light the fire under people. You know, so that's what he's always saying, that this isn't about another 4-year election. This is about giving the power back to you, the people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so now that's what's happening with these audits in Arizona and now many other states interested in it, that it's the people who are saying, no, there was some shenanigans going on.
Yes.
And we want to get to the bottom of it. We're not happy with listening to you mouthpieces saying that this was the safest, most secure election in U.S. history. No,
yes.
we don't buy that.
Says
crap.
who? CNN?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is coming from a Canadian who, you know, I mean, what vested interest do I have in American politics? Well, a lot. Because I see Canada already rolled over to CCP.
Mm-hmm.
If things don't get turned around there, we don't have a hope in hell here. And, you know, part of me thinks that I should get more involved with things locally here, and I probably will. But there's also a part of me that, you know, is reluctant just because, you know, mostly because how it may impact my kids.
Don't
you know,
forget.
I've got other things to think about.
I'm not trying to lead you in a direction. I'm just trying to promote. Don't forget how natural and obligatory we the people is. Yeah. I mean, it's in our core nature. I mean, to work in your community to the best of your skill set, to me, is something I recommend everybody do. And I appreciate that, you know, we all have differences of opinions, but that's also between father and son, brother and sister, you know, all the above. I mean,
father and daughter.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, that's one of the big things that in my life at this moment, you know, it takes its toll. And, you know, but that's, you know, aside that, there are so many dynamics going on. And I know in Canada right now, there's some elements that are going on. That,
Canada's in bad shape. I am not even following. I'm barely paying attention to what's going on in Canada, and the amount of terrible news I see coming out of there blows my mind.
Oh, it's terrible. And I mean, that's what's been a very sobering thing to me is that so many of my friends who I thought were a little more in the loop, just like, oh, no, things are great. And no, we like Trudeau. And like, really?
I'm terrified about what I see going on in Canada because I'm in Alaska.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about being rapidly surrounded by the Chinese
Hmm.
because I'm scared Canada will just let them.
It's not a far-fetched notion. That's for
Not
sure.
a far-fetched problem for Alaska right now.
Yeah.
I'm concerned that there are Chinese troops massing in Canada somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, I know. You hear all sorts of stories like that, and it's easy to discard them. It's just like easy to discard lots of stories that there have been arrests, there have been people in Guantanamo Bay. Okay, well,
It's
where is
the definition of plausible deniability in military operations. I mean, that's the whole point of it, is that there could be Chinese troops in the Arctic of Canada right now moving west towards Alaska. And there's massive amounts of plausible deniability, because if you're not there where it's happening, how do you know it's happening?
No, that's right.
I mean, that's the whole point of this. They're not going to go on the news and be like, we're sending some 50,000 troops over to Canada. Now you're going to have to go there and see if we're telling the truth or not. No, it's the reverse. They send them, and then you have to figure out if it's happening or not.
Yeah, yeah. And if CNN or CBC doesn't report on it, the majority of Canadians or Americans are going to go, whoa, that's not happening.
They won't even be allowed to report on it.
No,
they won't be allowed to. Just like
No.
here, the news is controlled, and they have officials that say, well, you can't really say that, so run this story instead. Okay, and take the money. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's some things that we're discussing that, it might not go over too well with the censor czars at YouTube.
That's why I have a website. It doesn't matter.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, go right to the website.
Yeah, no, that's what we have to do, and that's what more and more people are doing.
That's the whole point of me doing the website, is that we don't have to worry about censorship.
No.
That's basically my battle in the future, is as I see the truth being squished down and I see voices being silenced. This is my forward momentum in the fight, is that we the people deserve to have a voice, and I will go against the machinations that are trying to silence us.
Yeah. That's all we can do at this moment, and I applaud you for, the forum that you've created, and it's we all have to engage more, and that's what I'm trying to do more. And,
doing nothing accomplishes nothing 100% of the time.
Yeah,
so all I ask people to do is whatever something they want. I don't even want to try to tell people what to do. Just do something. You can't do nothing nowadays. You can't.
Yeah. Well, too many people go, well, what can I do?
Something. You can do something.
Yeah.
You can make a difference. That's my angle. And then I would just start. What do you do? What do you like to do? What's in you? Like, there's a million things that can be done.
Sure. Well, I mean, just personally, do you do any research? Do you look at anything other than CNN or CBC or how deep do you go down a subject? Are you content just to
if people want to start adjusting their perspective on things, how about this as an interesting exercise? Whatever your current venue is to gain information, don't go to it ever again for 3 months.
Yeah.
Find new information streams to get your information from and see what happens. It could be an interesting thought experiment.
Sure. I do that all the time. Like I look at all sorts of different, I follow a certain person for a while. I may think, this person's genuine, but I always entertain the idea that no, this is part of the controlled disinformation. So I never collapse myself into believing any one thing. I never have.
Yep.
I've looked into all sorts of different religions, all sorts of different philosophies throughout my life. I've never said, oh, I'm a Taoist, or I'm this, or I'm that. I may appreciate some of their aspects, but I don't just go, What I am is someone that's looking inside of himself, because that's where everything is ultimately. What I think is that the more you look inside, the more you are able to put all the other crazy pieces together. Things that seem so outlandish, suddenly it's not so outlandish.
Know thyself.
And that's all I want people to do. And for some reason, people get their nose out of joint because I question, well, where are you getting your information from? Well, do you check anything else? You can look at this stuff. Oh, I don't need to look at that. I know it's bullshit. Says, well, how do you know? You've never looked at it.
Yeah,
You know,
it's ridiculous.
it's dumbfounding to me, and it's been infuriating. But I've actually got to a point where I'm trying to, not get worked up. And like, well, you know what? It is your choice.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to stay in that bubble,
Mm-hmm.
discard everything I have to say or offer out of hand. That's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, people could certainly choose their level of intellect or not. But what they can't do is then, because they choose to maintain a low level of intellect, they don't get to then thumb their nose at your experiences and work.
No.
I mean, it doesn't work like that, but unfortunately, I feel like society used to respect intelligence more way back in the day, instead of frowning upon it or trying to undermine it. You know, you get into a conversation with someone and you start bringing intelligence to them. Strictly, I mean, literally, in a literal sense, you're bringing them stuff they haven't learned before. That is intelligence. You're bringing it in their direction and they're refusing it and then getting mad at you for the activity.
Yeah.
It's a very silly thing to me to see this going on nowadays. You know, you used to just say like, well, you know what? You know what, Kevin, I appreciate what you're telling me and I'm not really wrapping my head around what you're saying. But I'm kind of like that. These are the conversations you used to hear when people were respectful of an exchange of intelligence. You know, I wouldn't just start undermining what you were saying because I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's just like, no, I'm just going to discard it. And those are kind of the exact conversations I've had with some of my more intellectual friends or academic friends who, when they electrical engineer, and I started talking about the electric universe model. And man, this is an interesting thing. Have you ever looked into the electric universe model? It's like a whole new paradigm of understanding how everything works. Oh, I don't have to look into that because I know it's garbage. Really? How do you know that? Says, yeah, I know I'm not, explaining it the best way, but this is something I thought you would be interested in. Yeah,
electrical engineers are horses of a different color on many levels. This one cracks me up because I love bringing up Nikola Tesla to them.
Sure.
And then wireless transmission of energy, and watch how fast they start talking about how Nikola Tesla was a kook.
Yeah.
And you're like, really? You're an electrical engineer, and you're going to start talking down on Nikola Tesla. You must be smarter than him, for sure.
Exactly. No, it's dumbfounding. At one point, is it just intellectual arrogance, academic arrogance, or is it, no, they know exactly what you're talking about, but they have to play that role and say, no, he's a quack, he's a kook, because they know that their own pocketbook relies on keeping the charade going, that their own position in their lofty little world relies on keeping the giant scam going.
The ivory towers of different academia departments.
Yeah. And, that's why I find, like, here, I'm working in construction, and, people have this notion, oh, rednecks, this and that. Well, no, I'm getting way more acceptance, and at least, like, can hear me out, ask questions, don't just sort of judge me, than a lot of my more so-called intellectual or academic friends.
Right.
It's like, no, I mean, this is, it's a
the inability for many people to understand the physics of construction is crippling to their mind, but they don't know it because they don't understand the topic I just mentioned, which is construction. There's a lot to be said for just having the mind to move the hand. I mean, you're a sculptor. I mean, there's so much to be said for our own health, to be in the practice of working with our hands to create things before our own eyes. Yeah. It hardwires our brains to think differently and better.
Yeah. If you just sat, just getting spoon-fed all this book learning all your life, that's all you know. You don't know how to use a screwdriver.
Right.
Well, yeah, you're intimidated by someone who says, no, look at this nuts and bolts of this subject. Like, Nikola Tesla, he knew a few things.
There's a schism in the way society's brains work nowadays. There's folks that in their waking state, like for work now, they go to an office and they push buttons all day. I've read studies on this. The truth is already out there. As individuals, at the end of the day, we're not content because of that activity. not as contented as if we had sculpted something or built something.
Sure.
It's just, it's this truth. This is natural. It's an unnatural activity for somebody to go to an office and type on a computer all day. We don't gain anything from it as an individual. Sure, it pays the bills. You've killed some time, but it's not a contenting activity. Nor is it like mentally engaging, growing. I mean, it's not the same. But people, they don't want to respect that nature of things.
Yeah. No, we're getting so disconnected from being able to sit back and look at what our hands have done. You know, because we're just doing this all day. Yeah. And you know, like what I just doing for this last week. You know, making someone's back concrete pad look nice again. You know, it's gone through various incarnations, and now they're basically troweled out this stuff called jewel stone, which is this sort of glorified purging, right, for horizontal surfaces, or vertical if you want. But, you know, when I first put it out, it's just sort of a real rough, random look, right? And it was quite a light color. They wanted a particular color, just very light color. And the day after, she comes out and kind of like, I don't know, I think we made a mistake. I don't know where we're going with this. You know, like they say, well, I mean, what do you want? You need it darker? Because this is, you know, what the project was. And, you know, I didn't think it looked that great myself.
But they picked it, yeah.
So you do what the client wants, but then it's like, oh, I was sick all weekend. I'm just thinking about this. And no worries. No, what do you want? What do you need? So, well, I'd like it dark. I said, well, I can stain it. I can do however you like it. So, you know, start putting a darker stain on it. And then, you know, she's getting much happier. And then I say, well, I can add on some highlight to the high areas so it makes it pop more. And once I do that, then, you know, suddenly like, wow, yeah, we kind of really had our questions about where this was going. But this, you know, I say this is a good metaphor for life. It's like, okay, when it's just one color, one thing, very one dimension. Then I put some darkness onto it. Suddenly it starts to have a little more dimension, a little more push and pull, because it wasn't just all totally one color. So it started looking pretty decent. But once I put that little bit of highlight on, it totally makes it pop from that little tiny extra. Suddenly the darks really recede and the light really rise up. And it's a very good metaphor for what's going on today, that we don't really understand how dark it's gotten on this planet. You know, but we've been getting little glimpses of the light, that it doesn't have to be this way. But we need to look at the darkness first. Yes. To appreciate that, man, we shed a little bit more light on this. This can be a beautiful, beautiful world. You know, it doesn't mean you eradicate all polarity, all negativity. You know, that's not what it's about. It's getting it back in balance. So that you know, you've got enough light to show you what the darkness is all about. You know, it's not that the dark is bad. You know, in a way, you need it for the contrast. And you know, just to see their reaction, you know, over several days, going from, oh no, we don't know, you know, about this, made a mistake. Oh, don't worry, I can sort this out for you. What do you really want?
No, I can agree with that 100%. Is that we need to get the harmony back. We need to keep things in balance, and I feel like as of late we hear a lot of people that are running around and like, I'm a light worker. I'm a light worker, but it's usually followed with like, I'm a light worker. Go away. You're low frequency. I can't be around. Like what? How are you a light worker then? If someone's low frequency and you're telling them to go away, are you supposed to be helping them? Are you supposed to be bringing their frequency up?
Exactly. But you got to look at the dark square in the face.
Exactly.
And not hate them. You have to read. You know, my own journey. It's like I recognize that. Yeah, I got a dark side.
Yes.
Everyone does.
I think we need shadow workers. And the difference is, if a light worker, by definition, if a light worker can only work in the light, they can't function in the shadows, they're very limited where they can work. But a shadow, as we look around our environment, we can see shadows everywhere mixed among the lighted areas. So technically, a shadow worker can work both in the dark and amongst the light.
Yep.
But a light worker, by the definitions that I keep seeing from the light workers themselves, they don't work in the dark.
No. Well, to be fair, like I've definitely come across those that, oh no, everything's bliss, only stay in bliss. Well, no, you can't. I was happy to see that one of these things that I watched again. I keep it with discernment, but they were saying exactly that. It's like these people who are professing to be light workers, if they're saying no, I don't like to think about human trafficking and child sacrifice and all that. Like, no, I don't think about stuff like that.
Right.
Well, you're no light worker.
Right.
You have to stare at the darkness square in the face. Otherwise, how is that ever going to change?
That's exactly where my brain is at. Is that we need the people that are going to step up for the fight and break those shackles off.
Yeah. No, it's all about this time for us to all break off our shackles. I've been saying it for years that it's a very small group that kept us all at each other's throats. And so we don't look at them.
Right.
That puppet master who
I agree.
Behind the shadows, and once you shine a little bit of light on it, it's like, no, we're not going to completely eradicate. I would like to see a lot of the worst of the worst gone.
I would say there's some harmony to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not an advocate of violence or aggression, but there's something about justice and kid touchers. I mean, it's just something there where I'm not normally against causing harm to people, but you start adding pedophilias into the conversation, and my mind starts changing rapidly.
Sure, I have no problem saying no, string them up.
Yeah.
If that's and there does have to be a level of compassion because yes, a lot of this is generational. A lot of these families have been part of their sick.
I can understand where you're going with it, but it doesn't give me much pity for them.
No, and I'm not saying but if a person who's been involved in that, and I've seen some of these people who come forward that have grown up in those environments.
And you know what? Right off the bat, I can tell you, I would have two different feeling sets. If you put two pedophiles on trial, right? One of them is sobbing and remorseful and talking about a life of being abused themselves, and the other one is saying, let me out and I'm going to go get more kids. Those are two different people, and I would definitely treat them differently. Yeah. I don't need to paint with a broad brush, but all of these things exist. They're all worthy of conversation. People that won't get engaged in these conversations are tolerating it. That's the way I look at it. It's like all it takes for bad men to succeed is for good men to do nothing. It's that simple. And there's too many people doing nothing. I don't want to do nothing. I don't want anybody else to do nothing. I know nobody wants me to tell them what's something they're supposed to do. So I'll leave it to them. But God damn it, do something.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the one subject that kind of got me, fired up more than anything. Being a father is just like the notion of what's been going on.
Yeah, in a way, I can't even begin to express how much freedom I felt I've lost since my childhood, and I wonder if anybody else is paying attention to that. Yeah. Let's say you were the freedom level that you felt you had when you were 16 years old. You got your driver's license, your first car probably.
Sure.
Like there's a big giant world out there for you, and you're going to go see every bit of it. But now compared to then till now, I wonder how many people can say they're even close to that feeling. And then I would want clarification, because if anybody told me they felt as free as they did now, I'd want to pick their brain, because I would say they're deluding themselves.
Yeah. Well, we've been under the biggest mind screw in human history.
Total psyop.
It really is. And, when you start wrapping your head around it, I understand why people just want to keep their head in the sand and just, no, I can't. But what you're telling me is that everything that I know is a lie.
Yes.
and you say, well, yeah, it is.
Yep. And
But
it was set up that way so that they would put their heads in the sand. They're in a position that I can see where the intention was applied decades before to get them to be so active in head in the sand motions.
and only take it out if, and this is how they manipulate and gain control of the narrative. It's like, okay, something's getting exposed, like Weinstein. It's, the whole Me Too movement is a perfect example of how it starts to come out that guys like this sick producer, who's taking advantage of all these young starlets. So what ends up happening is that, it gets turned around. The narrative is like, oh, well, every young starlet, goes onto the producer couch. And, so it gets watered down to the point where people no longer pay attention to it. So it's those very same people who are engaging in those practices. They pick up the banner and say, yeah, I'm the champion of you people. We're going to expose this Me Too movement. And within a few weeks, it all dies away and they've accomplished their task. That's the way I see how they get hold of the narrative and steer it so that people lose interest very quickly, and then it's all forgotten. But more and more people are at least going, no, I'm digging in deeper. Like, yeah, okay, there's young starlet who does things to promote her career. Fair enough. But there's an awful lot that it goes far, far beyond that. And then that's why I see Epstein was brought up to make people a little bit deeper aware of how sick the whole agenda is. And so to me, it's been this slow process of getting people up to speed in things that none of us want to think about. None of us want to think that this is what's really been going on. I certainly did. I was happy to think that these pedophiles were just the odd lunatic who would abduct a child. And for most people, that's where they want to stop. They don't want to begin to think that this is systemic. That throughout all of our organizations, going right back to the Vatican, which I believe is
most people don't want to know that there are groups of people on this planet. Like this is the absurdity of it. There are groups of people on this planet outbidding each other for the select children that they could then murder alive and consume. Nobody wants to understand that that's going on.
So no one wants to even entertain that idea. And understandable.
It's a horrible thought. I don't even like the words coming out of my mouth. But it's a reality that if we don't engage, then we will be the good people doing nothing.
Exactly. No, I mean that's what got me more fired up than anything. Like we start wrapping your head around that. It's a horrible pill to swallow. But once you do, you start seeing things around you in a different way. You start looking at relationships with people that you've had for years and years, and you start questioning, well, what's really happened? Why was I set up in a particular way that had I acted in a particular way, they would have had dirt on it.
I think a lot of people simply cast the blind eye because they probably have a past of abuse that they don't want to associate to. That is too traumatic, and I get that, But this is how this is nature of the beast stuff. That this monster is actually so large that they also know this is going on, and it's part of the plan. Hey, if we abuse them all at the right time in the right place, then they'll all have a certain distaste for the conversation. It's also natural and able to be inculcated in society.
Sure. And through their own practices of fracturing, a young child's psyche. That's what they're doing right now on a global scale.
Yes.
They're fracturing all of our psyche, putting us into a state of fear and panic, hatred, so that we're no longer accessing our intellectual mind.
Right.
We're operating solely from our emotion and our gut.
They're dissociating and triggering according to the emotional guitar strings that are getting plucked, so to say.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And once you start realizing how they're playing us all, you can't unsee it.
Yep.
And once you do, it's like, no, I don't care.
Oh my God! Look what happened just yesterday with this bogus disclosure.
Yeah.
Look at how many people were sitting there tuned in. Oh, the Pentagon's going to tell us the truth about the UFOs they've been lying about for all these years. Yeah, how'd that song sound?
Yeah. No,
did you tip them at the end?
No, I mean, I was hopeful that maybe we would actually come up with something, maybe fly a TRV-3 across the sky. But no, I had heard
that this was all coming out. I thought it was a load of baloney to begin with, but I reserved hope, right? It was only a couple of days before that I had found out that the Pentagon was only delivering to Congress. I had heard 2 reports, one unclassified, one classified. I had not heard that until just recently, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And people really believe that they're going to get anything out of the classified one? And then the unclassified one is only released 9 pages? It was like, wow, this was like... It was an actual slap in the face that I think people... It amazes me that they don't even see it as a smack in the face.
Yeah. See, they're admitting that they know something, but they're not going to tell us. We
right.
Know.
Yes.
Oh, that's a great revelation.
Yeah, we're going to let you know that we were lying. That's all. I was not going to tell you the truth still. Ta-da! That was the big release that everybody called historical. This is historic.
Yeah.
I know all the gatekeepers, all the Lou Elizondos and cherry-picked players are all going to run around, getting rich off of this historical event.
Yeah, it's a strange time.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a very unusual ride for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I think exactly what we're doing is what more and more people have to do is just express their own experiences. Not feel that you're isolated.
Yep.
In a world with so much confusion and nonsense and disinformation. Mm-hmm. At least be comfortable enough to express ideas that are controversial.
Yes.
Without the fear that, you're going to get totally shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, there's no room for that at this moment. If you shut me down, well, yeah, you shut me down because I won't have anything more to do with you. I'm offering my insights. You can either take it, look into it yourself, or discard it.
Yeah. I'm just putting my experience out there. If they see value to it, so be it. My experience is extremely valuable to me. So I'll share it and hope that other people see value in it as well. That's all I got.
Yeah. Like, for the last number of years, I've been, the nut waving my arms in the air going, hey, everybody, this isn't what you really think it is. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And some people pay attention and start looking into things themselves.
Yep.
I've gained alliances that I never thought I would and lost a lot of people that I thought would be very open to it.
Yep.
And to me, that's it's good. It's all good. It's part of my experience. And if they're not at that point on this path, that's fine too. Mm-hmm. I don't begrudge anyone. I don't begrudge any of my friends. It's like, okay, no, you don't value anything I say. Well, then no, I'm not gonna play along and just be nice and quiet, sit in the corner and watch my mouth.
Right.
Like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I'm more of a rage against the dying of the light type person.
Yeah, well, we are in that moment where the light is snuffed out. We're not, and I think for certain people, the light will be snuffed out. They will experience that dystopic Orwellian world for many more lifetimes to come. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that there's a lot of us who, as I say, are ready to get off the carousel.
Yep.
It's like, no, we can. So whatever you think, so you are. We're at that stage where we're all ready to, step into our own, Buddha nature or Christ nature. Mm-hmm. There is no one person coming to save us. Nah. To me, the second coming is all about, Christ died for us, but he died so that we could understand that we all have to walk a certain path. The Buddha told us that, we all have to, it's an inner journey. Mm-hmm. No one is coming to grab you by the hand and bring you to the pearly gate. Mm-hmm. Sorry, folks, that ain't going to happen.
If I remember correctly, I'm terrible at having to quote things, but didn't Jesus also say something about when questioned about his abilities, he responded in a way, he said, all of these things I can do, you can do also.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. That's a pretty close paraphrase of it.
Something like that, right?
Exactly. I mean, to me, that's what he thought was all about. He wasn't saying that, no, I'm here to, like, as a lot of fundamentalists want to think that, oh, he died for us on the cross and all of our sins are forgiven. So now he's like, yeah, bro, I got you covered. You sit back, you don't have to worry about it.
I'm certainly no Bible thumper, but I respect that the story of this Jesus person is still around for a reason. So however we want to interpret it, there's something in this story of Jesus the Christ, whatever you want to call it. There's some value there for people to look into. I mean, I am not a Bible thumper, but I am not a Bible burner, So it's like, I just look at it. It's a book. It's a book, and it's an old book. I respect old books.
Yeah. Well, it's like what the Buddha was teaching us. To me, they're, really one and the same. That's going to ruffle a lot of feathers.
Oh, yeah.
But, when I was young and
a lot of folks say the Eightfold Path is the Beatitudes.
What's that?
A lot of folks say that Buddha's Eightfold Path is the 8 Beatitudes of Christianity.
Sure, yeah.
That there's so many similarities. There's so many similarities in all of the religions. And I know you said that you're a student of many religions. So am I. And in my studies, I have found that it appears that all of the religions are effectively a stream of information that have all overflowed and gone into different directions, but from the same fountain.
Sure.
And as the streams have gone across, there is now land and space in between them, right? You could probably draw a good picture of this. And then in the land in between the rivers of these streams of thought, you'll have people that have ideas that are similar to the streams that they're closest to. That's all. And that's like a way of looking at the world. Somewhere this information spewed out all over the world, and there's different streams and stuff and different lands in between the streams, and we all have different beliefs accordingly. But it's obviously come from the same place in antiquity if you're a student of enough religions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, when I was young and traveling through Asia, what struck me is in Thailand, we would point to all these different walks, all these different temples and stuff. And on a lot of the temple walls, there'd be these big paintings, murals that had, an image of Jesus right next to Buddha. And, me and my friends were like, oh, geez, what's Jesus doing up there? And they just like, oh, they're like brothers. They're same thing. They're brothers. And I found that like, man, this is so refreshing to have a culture that just, they're one and the same. It's like, he came 500 years before the historical Jesus. To me, he was sort of the predecessor. But he's saying the same sort of message in that part of the world. Jesus comes along and spreads the same message out. He's the world avatar for this last 2,000 years. And I believe what we're going into right now is realizing that, it's not about some one individual coming along to lead us to salvation. These masters, from every culture have all been telling us, look inside yourself and you will do greater works than you.
Yep.
And this is what I really believe is the true second coming. Like, there may well be some of these masters that come back into our fold, but it's not going to be about, hey, look at me.
I think I actually just remembered an additional line in that Jesus quote. I think he actually said, when queried about the skills that Jesus had, he said, "The things I can do, you can do, and many more."
Yeah.
It was actually more accurate. He said, not only can you do them, you can do them, and many more. So he hadn't even shown them his full toolkit yet, so to say.
No, exactly. Yeah. He was just showing them some of his masonry skills. Yeah. But no, he's a plumber. He's an electrician. He's all sorts of things. And that's really what I see unfolding right now. But that's part of why we have to go through this process. People have to look at themselves and go, no, I'm not just buying into this. Yeah, I'm going to wait for the knight in shining armor to save us all.
Mm-hmm.
Say, no, this is the moment we all have to make individual choices
Mm-hmm.
and pull up our own socks. Because if we don't, no one's
Mm-hmm.
coming to save us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's up to us to save ourselves. And if we do, then yeah, I do believe we could walk into a world which is really quite marvelous,
Mm-hmm.
where suddenly we're walking hand in hand with these masters, not as a master, but as a fellow brother, sister.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't want us to look at them as something high and mighty above us,
Mm-hmm.
holy man. Like, no, we're being called to do the same thing as
Mm-hmm.
them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can follow that. I can follow that logic. Like, in a way, you have to earn your seat at the table by breaking the shackles.
Yeah. And once you do, it's
Mm-hmm.
no longer, oh yes, we're great masters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, hey,
Mm-hmm.
fill up my glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
Give me another piece of bread. You're on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I believe, what we're called to. Not to
Mm-hmm.
not to always grovel and
Mhm.
expect to be saved and that, there's someone above us.
I like the way you
No.
think, Kevin. I like that. Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, it takes right action after right thought. It's good to have right thought, but you have to have right action, like almost immediately afterwards. Or what's the value?
No, that's right. And that's the biggest thing right now. We're all called to it. That's what I've said on Facebook many times. Like I really don't engage anymore. Well, partly because I can't access Messenger, I can't access most of my notifications. So it's like, okay, you want to message from YouTube? I'll still post things. As I said many times, it's like, I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here to, get likes and stuff. I'm just, I'll put out what I think is
Pertinent.
maybe, and maybe stir someone's curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, well, yeah, you can think of me as a nut job and that Kevin's done off. Then, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's okay what other people think.
Yeah,
I always remembered when I was in Catholic school as a child growing up. It was a very old school, regimented Catholic school. And I'm not going to lie. They basically taught us that, like, the other religions are the enemies,
Sure.
They were teaching us that, Jesus Christ is coming back and watch out because the Jewish people are going to try to kill him immediately again. That, like, as if we were still at war. Like, that's the way we were being taught as children. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm saying that was the methodology. In this, down the block from me growing up, we had a Thai family that was attending the school. They weren't Catholic. And I would play with these children, and it was so interesting to me because I was like, you go to a Catholic school, but you're not Catholic. Like, it blew my mind. And I'm like, our faculty, like, almost like under their breath is like saying they want you to die. Like, I'm in this classroom. Like, I can, like, how do you, I was amazed that they could be so interactive, aware. And I would say, like, like Catholicism doesn't tolerate your religion. And she would laugh and tease me, and she would say, that's why my religion is better. She goes, because we have no problem with you. And I had no argument with that.
Yeah, perfect.
And she was already in the enlightened position as a child, and that blew my mind because I was like, my religion sucks.
Well, I certainly went through a period, because I was raised Catholic, went through the whole indoctrination program, and I got to a point, it's like, I don't want any part of this.
Nothing.
There's nothing loving about this. But then you start actually reading what Jesus said. It's like, no, this guy's pretty cool.
Don't think the Catholic version of Christ is worth nothing.
But that's how everything has been inverted.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the dark side of the cabal has always done.
I always joke around.
The
I say 13 years at Catholic school taught me to not want to be Catholic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It wasn't until I started reading Buddhism and Hinduism and shamanism and all these different things that I gained a whole new appreciation for what Christ actually was talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, well, he's saying the same thing, the 5 yamas and 5 niyamas, the 5 do's and don'ts of Buddhism are the same as our Ten Commandments. It's the, you know, as you say, the eight pearls, or you know.
Heck, and then you can take all of that stuff back to Sumerian text if you want to talk about, you know, all of these things. This is where I talk about, like, that same fountain. There's very few things that we can find in any religion that can't be also found in the cuneiform tablets of Sumeria. And that still just, you know, again, how far do we go back in antiquity before that? One, you know, one never knows.
So,
how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? You know, like, how many?
Every day there's more archaeological finds, like, you know, just looking at stuff they're finding in Ukraine.
Yes.
Now they're dating some of these mounds that they're excavating. That, wow, these things could be 23,000 years old. And what do they find on them? Proto or pre-cuneiform writings that are talking about the same stories of Enki and Enlil. That's like, oh, wow, this stuff we're carbon dating to 23,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Completely throwing all of our traditional notion out the door.
Yeah, archaeology, carbon dating is a real joke. One of the best examples we have in our modern world, to where we really need to get our heads out of the sand and start saying, you know what, we've been totally bamboozled and we're listening to the wrong people, okay?
Oh, sure.
Folks, look at what happened on Easter Island. For decades, they were discussing the heads, the statues on Easter Island. Decades it took before somebody stuck a shovel in the ground and realized that the head was on top of a body. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is the state of academia in a nutshell.
It is.
Listen to what we tell you. Take it as fact, as if we are smart enough to figure this out, and then regurgitate it to you, because they're not. They're really not.
Very good technology. It's like, oh, there's a whole body under there.
They're putting on a show. It's all a show. This is all back that all the world is a stage. We were presented the history of a world because that's what someone funded. Somebody sent cameras and an archaeological team to go around it and take pictures and make a show. It's not archaeology. Archaeology is digging. And if somebody's not going to afford you the grant to dig, then you're photographers. They've been photographing it for years. There's apparently been no excavation done on the site of Easter Island until they officially put a shovel in the ground and found out there were statues.
But I don't know if you're too familiar about the Bosnian pyramids and the work that Mir Osmanovic has been doing. And, you know, he had one of the leading Egyptologists out there to investigate it several years ago. You know, of course, the Egyptologists wanted to debunk him, but this guy actually has some integrity. And he said, no, there's something to this. That there's something to this.
There's a lot going on with those.
Yeah. So what happens? He goes back to Egypt, and Zahi Hawass terminates him right away. Because, oh no, what do you mean that there's something to the pyramids in Bosnia? You know, so again, it's an academic. Well, it's not just academic arrogance. There's something much more at work.
Yeah, but there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than people are presented.
Yeah,
it's that manipulation of knowledge.
Most people have no idea about sites like Bosnian pyramids, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. These things are completely throwing the whole archaeological timetable on its head. And you know, have you ever heard of this? No. You know,
I was at the South Pole Station 10 years ago, and I became. It was 10 years ago at this point, and I learned that the temperatures and the directions that they were going, I learned the truth about it. People still haven't learned the information that I learned from 2010 in academia through the normal process of dissemination to show that the temperatures aren't global warming. You know?
Well, we're in a period of transition, but the sun is in a period of transition. Every other planet in our solar system is changing. You know, we're receiving waves of energy coming from the center of the galaxy.
Mother Nature's always changing, like you said, because of all of the variables of the entire cosmos. And if any lunatic out there thinks that your government can tax you into them figuring out how to make corrections for the cosmos, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you.
It's a sad state of affairs when so many people just buy into that lie, hook, line, and sinker without ever questioning. Oh, well, the consensus is that these global Scientologists, or they are Scientologists,
in a way. Good Freudian slip.
Yeah, these meteorologists, they climate, they all agree because they all have the same people funding them. And
that's all it boils down to, and people don't get that. Yep.
No, and if they don't adhere to the narrative that their people funding them want to hear, well, no, you're not going to get your funding.
I'm hypothesizing because I don't know that this is the funding instrument. But imagine if it just turned out simply that the global warming grants for the last 2 decades, imagine they all came from the same grant table that just happened to say something on it, like, I don't know, like Rockefeller Foundation for Investigation of Global Warming. I mean, could something like that happen? I don't know.
Well, that's okay. You lost me there. You're just go put on your tinfoil hat.
I mean, maybe stuff like that happens somewhere.
I mean, it's a possibility, right? It's just a very slim possibility that,
I know of a community. Let's just say I know of a community. I'm gonna, to protect the innocent, I'll mix it all up.
Yeah.
There's a large metropolitan area, and let's just say that in this community, every township gets a phone book. So if you're from A town, B town, C town, D town, all the way down to Z town, and every number and symbol, there's that many towns. Every town gets its own phone book. And you go to the electrical section, and you need an electrical repairman at your house. The first ad that you will see will say Town A Electrical. But if you live in Town B, it'll say Town B Electrical, your hometown electrical company. Then you go to Town C, and you get a phone book that says Town C Electrical, your local electrical company. And you get them all over the place. Turns out every one of those ads goes to the same desk. How many people know that?
Yeah.
How many people are aware that around them there's such a false sense of choice they never knew about? But they'll call every one of those companies, think they're getting a different bid, think they're getting a different worker, think they're getting a different deal, think they're getting a choice. And that's just a smart electrician doing something like that. Imagine someone that's got more resources and more nefarious interests, what could be accomplished while people are too busy paying their mortgages and watching Monday Night Football, eating Whoppers because the television told them to.
Yeah, all by design.
Yes.
And now everyone's got that carrot in front of them that, if you only get the jab, everything will go back to normal.
Got to get the jab, because if they don't get the jab, they can't keep the job. They can't have the built-in pool and the BMW. And heaven forbid they just had morals and conviction.
Yeah, it's like, no, you know what? No, thank you, but I won't be a guinea pig for this human experimental trial. Oh, they're just crazy. I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish that, spend hours with, but many other people are doing it, so I don't need to belabor it too much. It's just like, wow, just another element, another layer to this.
Yep. That's the thing for, I guess, when you look at this like a large non-conventional war, is that, like I've said to you before, like, we have to choose our battles. We as individuals, we can't spread ourselves too thin and fight on every front. We don't have the resources. No. But a faction with massive resources, they will try to fight on every front that they can resource, and that's how they whittled society down.
Sure. Yeah, going full well that, you take out a few commentators on YouTube that are actually saying the truth. Well, they might get another platform somewhere, but they're going to lose so many subscribers who won't take the time to track them down. And, so, you keep on whittling them down. It's like, okay, you're just one little tiny spot now. But more and more people are like you, like, no, I'm going to make my own platform. You can't censor me anymore.
Yeah, basically.
And, that's what we need more and more of. So, I mean, I look forward to collaborating more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
can dive into
We should probably wrap it up because these always go on long forever. So
yeah,
I do appreciate you being here, Kevin, and I will absolutely take you up on talking again. I do want to introduce you to Ryder Lee, who I've been working with on the website as well, and we can start maybe doing some conversational collaborations. I think you'll enjoy where his brain is at. He's a young gentleman who I just look at his intellect as being ahead of the curve. You know, I was not so enlightened at 28 years old, and he's a smart cat. So I enjoy dialoguing with him, and I'm sure that you will as well.
that's great.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that you have anything to plug, do you?
Nope.
Nope.
I have no website, no nothing.
Just trying to help everybody day by day.
Well, yeah. Yes. I mean, people go, you've got to get your own website for all your art stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I probably should, but personally, it's never been a burning desire to be. I'm not looking for notoriety. If I could stay hermited away in my little garden and doing my own thing, I'd be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I see the world unraveling in a certain way, and it would be, neglectful. It'd be of me to just sit back, with what I've experienced and what I feel I know.
That's exactly the way that I look at it, Kevin. It would be irresponsible for me to keep my experiences to myself.
Yeah. So for me, it's not about, shameless plugging myself. And, at some point there are actually quite a few things that I'd like to show, but they're just more like means to
express
get across other concepts.
Yep.
And you can pursue that.
I really look forward to doing all of that. But I totally have to shamelessly plug. So if everybody could go to deciphering.tv and subscribe and share this stuff, please, because these are the conversations that Kevin and I are trying to get out there. So sharing is caring in this world. Go to YouTube. I have Deciphering My Experience there. If you can subscribe there, share that stuff, click the like buttons and all the things that, this is the truth movement. This is how you can help us farm the truth in society. This is adding the fertilizer. This is adding the water. This is how you do it, folks. We're like a co-op. We're like a woofer farm of truth. Everybody has to be involved in this, for real. This is how it works, So, Kevin, as always, I thank you so much. And everybody that was listening today, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. And have an excellent day.
Thank you.